Legos. They're a toy, they're an art form, they're a tool, they're a fun hobby. Designing a Lego model can also be a great way to practice problem solving. Looking at a pile of pieces and figuring out how to put it together into a cohesive model is often harder than it looks, and it teaches us valuable skills. In this speech, I will be talking about what goes into designing a Lego model and showing you how to build a Lego penguin. So when you're designing a Lego model, you start out by thinking about which pieces are obvious, what obviously looks like some certain part of your subject. So this orange piece, it looks a lot like a penguin's beak. It's tapered at the end. It doesn't really look like an actual penguin's beak, but it's a cartoonish depiction of one. Then these eye pieces, you can use those for eyes, of course. And for the penguin's feet, we'll use these yellow claw pieces. The penguin wouldn't really have claws, but it would have webbed feet, and I think it still works pretty well. Well, a penguin's a lot more than just claws, a beak, and eyes. So we have to think about what makes up the rest of the penguin, what has a less obvious solution in Lego. Well, these sloped pieces, they'll be good for the wings of the penguin. And when I was looking at those slope pieces, I saw these slope pieces, and at this point I wasn't exactly sure what I'd use them for, but they seemed sort of penguin-esque. The back part of the penguin can be represented with this steep slope, the way that a penguin's back sort of would go down like that. Again, it's a cartoonish depiction, it might not be totally accurate. Then for the penguin's tail, I'll use this piece. It slopes like that. It's a less steep slope, and it will go underneath this piece. For the front part of the penguin, the part that's the legs sort of come down from, I'll use this inverted slope. And for the legs, we just have claws right now, but a penguin's legs are a little bit longer than that. So I'll use these yellow dot pieces. We have yellow feet, so we might as well have yellow legs on top of that. The top of the penguin's head will stick with the angular structure of our penguin. So I'll use these pieces. I'll use two of these facing opposite directions for the top of the penguin's head. And now we just have to think about how we're going to connect it all together. So I'll start out with just a regular 2x2 Lego brick for the head of the penguin. Then I'll stick on this piece on top of it, and I can connect the eyes to that piece. Now we want to stick on the beak, but we don't want to stick it on either side like that. So what I'll end up doing is using this white piece, and we'll stick it on there. And because it has a dot in the middle instead of on one of the sides, we can stick the beak on, and it'll be centered on the face. Well, now the top of the head isn't level anymore, so to level it off, I'll use this 2x1 black piece. Now I'll go ahead and stick on the two sloped pieces that I'm using for the head. And there's the penguin's head finished. Well, underneath the head is the joint where the wings would come off. So I'll use this clip piece. I'll clip these two pieces to each side of it. And now the wings can slope down like that. And so I'm using these sloped pieces for the wings. So I'll stick them on to each side. Now we can stick that onto the penguin, and it has wings. Well, for the body of the penguin, I'll use these 2x1 white pieces at first for the top little part. And I figured out that these pieces would be a great part for the side of the body, so they'll go down like that. Well, to do that, I can use these pieces with a dot on the side. So I'll stick two of those facing opposite directions onto the penguin. And now I'll put on two more of these 1x2 white pieces. And what's interesting is that when we stick on two more of these pieces to the side, we can actually stick these onto the side. It's the right distance apart. So that's what I'll do. I'll stick the one facing that direction to that side. And I'll stick the one facing the opposite direction to the opposite side. Well, now I can stick on this piece that I was using for the back of the penguin. And then I can use this white piece for the front, the part that goes towards the legs. Then I'll add on the tail. And now I can add on the legs. So I'll put the two yellow dots underneath. Then I'll put on the legs. And there's a completed penguin. So when you're actually designing a Lego model, it won't really be a linear process like in this video. It'll involve a lot more guessing and checking. You'll try something, it won't quite work, and then you'll try something else and maybe it'll work better. But I think the lessons from Lego building can really apply to solving any problem. You think about things from a critical perspective. What's a critical perspective? What's the shape of the penguin? What makes up the tail? And how can you do that with Legos? How can you connect the beak in the middle? How can you do the head? And when you look at a problem in life, you can think about it from that same critical perspective. You break it up into steps, maybe, like I did in the video. You think about what you can do now, and then you think about what you can do now that's sort of less obvious. Then you just try to tie it all together into your finished project or your solution to your problem. And I think that Lego building and problem solving go hand in hand.